It was a risk on the part of Andrew Lloyd Webber and his production team. Nobody believed it would fly, but somehow, at least on the theatre stage, it did. As you know, hopefully, this was the third really successful show by Andrew Lloyd Webber after Jesus Christ Superstar and Evita. But it was unusual. It was a concept musical based on a cycle of poems by a Nobel Prize winning English poet T.S. Eliot, which he wrote for some kids he knew about cats, about very anthropomorphized cats. So cats that would have very human emotions, sometimes human professions, and the general idea was that it was something about like Halloween night, and all the cats were competing by telling the life achievements, and whoever had the best would be reborn. There is a story that cats can have multiple lives, so the winner would get a new life. So this was a typical concept musical with different characters coming and going, and very often never appearing again. So there wasn't really a very unified plot apart from this life story contest. Another thing was that this musical very, very heavily featured on dance. Probably more than any other musical, definitely the musical of that age. It premiered in 1980. This was a musical which very heavily depended on dancing, on almost acrobatic choreographics by the actors, who were all dressed in cat suits, and they were told to behave and especially to move like real cats. What was new about this musical was also that it was one of the first big musicals to have very, very heavy promotional campaign. So it wasn't only the show itself, it was all merchandise around the show. The mugs and t-shirts and other memorabilia with a very memorable logo, featuring the kind of bright green cat's eyes with the figures of dancers merged with those eyes. So you didn't even need the title. If you saw those eyes somewhere on some merchandise, they will draw your memory back to the show. It proved to be very successful, although at first nobody believed in it. And there were two versions which you could have seen. One is the recorded, one is the recorded performance on stage, and the other one is the recently premiered movie adaptation. And I would like you in the comments below to try and answer the question: did it fly? Did it fly again? Or perhaps, as very many movie reviewers said, this was the flop of the century. If so, why? Why didn't it succeed? Why this musical, after quite a few other successful film adaptations of major musicals, why it didn't succeed, or why it was so vilified by the press? I would like to read your comments below. Thank you. When I made this video in March, it was soon after the premiere of the very controversial film version of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats, and I hope you were brave and watched it. So we can discuss it a little bit more. There is a forum for cats on Moodle, so rather than writing your comments here, you can do it still. It's possible, and yeah, if you prefer to do it here, go ahead. But there is a forum on Moodle to discuss just that. So there have been responses from the online community of theatre lovers to the film. You may want to look up the videos, for example, made by Lindsay Ellis. She has a long video in which she analyzes the new film and compares it with the stage musical. There is also a very interesting video on the channel Wait in the Wings, mostly regarding the figure of the outcast on the example of Grizabella and comparing it with another Andrew Lloyd Webber classic, that is The Phantom of the Opera. It's a very interesting take, something new and something that might be interesting also later in our discussion of The Phantom. So what I would add, I think this musical, I think the Polish staging of Cats, and kind of liked it. I liked the staging, I liked the way they apparently had a consultant being an animal behaviorist and advising the actors how to move and how to behave so they would resemble animals, cats, even more. I guess the same thing was done in the original staging. So I liked it, and I kind of still have a soft spot for the original musical. You can still see a rather good, I would say quite recommendable version, which is the recorded performance with live actors performing on stage. I kind of bought the idea of the concept musical about cats, and I do not really agree with the answer that Andrew Lloyd Webber apparently gave to the director Hal Prince. You may find it in this documentary about Broadway theatre, when Hal Prince started to look for metaphors in cats, and Andrew Lloyd Webber said, no, it's just a show about cats. It's not about the Victorian society, it's not about people, it's not about anything. It's just a straightforward show about cats. I don't think so. I think he was pulling Hal Prince's leg because, well, cats do not have professions, cats do not have human emotions, and these cats definitely do have these things. So it's let's say a life contest of people disguised as cats rather than real animals. Of course, cats have different personalities. I have 2 cats at the moment, and they have very different personalities. You could see Watson in this earlier recording. I don't want to bother him now, but yes, he's still there. And there is another cat you may see in one of the recordings. Her name is Kiciuncik, and she has a different personality. So yes, cats have their personalities, but I wouldn't go as far as to imply they have professions, like being a train conductor or an actor or I don't know, restaurant critic or anything, or even criminals. They might be mischievous, but they are not professional criminals or anything. So if you remember our last live meeting, and I talked about the places, the moments in musicals that kind of open up the show for me, I guess in case of Cats, it would be one of the shorter songs that are not from the humorous cycle that T.S. Eliot wrote for those kids that he wrote the original poems for. I would really vote for the song "The Moments of Happiness." Listen to it again. The Polish translation was quite horrible, but the original is really powerful. This is the song sung by the cat called Old Deuteronomy, which is originally a male role in the recent film. This was the cat played by Judi Dench. So the leader of the pack, the oldest cat in the group, and he or she, doesn't really matter, discusses like the criteria of the contest. So something that links these little songs together. And as I understand it, this is really going beyond an individual experience, an experience, as she says, okay, of one life only, but something relatable to the audience, something relatable to people regardless of their age, of the generation, of the time they live in. So I guess that's the most important metaphor here of what makes a life successful, what makes a life worthy of reward. Here the reward is being reborn, so it's like the ultimate reward anyone can hope for. And it's not for being good, it's not for being a celebrity, it's not for being a professional or even a kind of funny, mischievous character as some of the cats are. Spoiler alert, the prize is eventually given to Grisabella. And who is Grisabella? And I've been thinking about it for quite a while, and I don't think I heard any of the commentators having a similar interpretation of this character as I do. Some say that she is supposed to be, as they say, the lady of the night, a sex worker, that is. I don't know. I don't really see any of that. She is, of course, poor. She is in bad state physically and probably mentally. She's an outcast, she's shunned by other cats, and eventually she sings this heart-wrenching song, Memory, that is one of the standards of the musical theatre at all. And I still think it's one of the best musical theatre songs ever written, one of those great, powerful, belting songs that showcase the talent of the actor. And I wonder if you agree. We might have a discussion on Moodle or when we have the live meeting on that. But for me, Grisabella is the cat that used to live with a human family, used to be loved, and then she was lost or she was abandoned, and she spends her days mourning the lost happiness. But this is the happiness of interacting with the humans. She was loved by a human family and she lost that, and this is the happiness that she remembers. This is the happiness that she mourns. I don't know. What do you think of that? For me, this really makes her very touching and very powerful character, and possibly the most human of all these cats. So, as I said before, there's been a very successful and popular theatre musical. For many people, this was, as they say, a gateway drug. The first musical, or one of the first musicals they have seen as children, something they remembered, something that made an impression on them and made them love musical theatre as such. I seen it later. I knew some of the songs memory. Well, you couldn't really live and not hear memory somewhere. But for a long time I didn't know it was from a musical, and it was from a musical about cats, so that's it. And then there was this film version late last year, and it flopped. Some said it was the flop of the century, and there's been quite a lot of talk about what went wrong. And you may want to Google that, you may want to research and explore all the opinions of the commentators online. For me, a few things. First of all, it is a show based on dancing, very, very heavily relying on dancing. And dancing is the art that mostly impresses the viewer live. Because if you have film, if you have all the special effects and the CGI and all those, the film magic, you can do anything. You can do characters actually flying in space. You can do people, actors looking like they do incredible acrobatics. So good quality professional dancing does not impress that much on the screen as it does in live theatre. And because this show is so heavily reliant on dancing, I guess it didn't really work that well in film version. The filmed theatre show works better because at least nobody makes you have this suspension of disbelief thing that you have in the movies. Well, we know this is a theatre show, we know this is live, so whatever the actors do is their real skill, their real talent, their real prowess as dancers. So that's one thing. Another thing is probably something that happened to her, but her managed to pull it off. Namely, the problem with concept musicals. They do not really translate very well into the film medium because of their very nature, of being episodic, of not being a kind of nice flowing storyline. They tried to add up as much of the storyline as they could in the film, but it didn't really work so well. So you would still have this typical structure for the concept musical, in which characters come, they do their number, and they go away never to be seen again. It doesn't bother so much in the theatre. It bothers significantly more in film. And the last thing, something that was really criticized and something with which I agree, is the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is a kind of phenomenon which is related to artificial intelligence. So if you have a robot, or if you have some sort of artificial intelligence looking completely not like humans, like kind of, very technical looking robots, everybody just accepts that, and they are fine with that. On the other end of the scale, there are robots or artificial intelligence that look exactly like humans. So you need to be informed that they are not humans. But otherwise they look identical to humans. And then there is the uncanny valley. The moment when the CGI is very visible, so you know that there has been something done with the image that you see, but the resemblance to humans is still very recognizable. So it's the unpleasant moment when you see humans with those, let's say, costumes made by the CGI that doesn't make them human, and you do not really know what you are dealing with. This unpleasant sensation has been called the uncanny valley, and I would say the chorus book example of that would be in the recent film version of Cats. So the costumes, the masks, the fur, the ears of the actors playing cats is either too much or not enough to be believable, to be acceptable. So that's the problem with Cats. It's still a very important show. I hope the flop of the movie version will not kill the theater version, because it's really good, and still I guess deserves to be revived. And yeah, so that's it about Cats, and now let's move on to Hamilton.